Matthew Kalkman is an environmental lawyer, an author, and political futurist who is an enthusiastic young liberal, a liberal who expounds on and embraces what he calls new liberalism, which retains a little bit of Lester Pearson, Chrétien, Trudeau, and the others, and it embraces new liberal ideas. Matthew has written a small book on the subject, and it is my pleasure to welcome Matthew Kalkman to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Thank you for having me.
Always a liberal from the time you were 4, or when did it begin?
It began actually in high school. I joined the Rotary Youth Club Interact, and it was all about public service. And that led me into questions about how can you make a positive difference in the world? And that led me to politics. And I realized the party that did that was the Liberal Party.
Really? And did you come from a political family? Were they liberals? Were they conservatives? Were they NDPers?
They're very much independents, like many people in Canada. But they were always interested in the issues, curious about the issues. And they helped strike that interest in me.
So the term new liberalism, what does it mean?
New liberalism is really about a shift in our politics. I believe it's a generational shift. And it's the idea that if you look at all the big challenges of our time, climate change, the growing debt and deficits, and the growing inequalities, they're all threats not only to our freedom, but the freedom of future generations. And so we have to somehow turn our politics from focusing on the short term to focusing on those long-term issues.
And when you do that, focusing on the long term, you coined a term called positive freedom.
Positive freedom is not my term, but timeless freedom is.
Timeless freedom. Maybe Bob Ray calls it positive freedom. One of you did. But timeless freedom. Timeless freedom means?
It really is, at the heart, it's the sense that we have a responsibility to ensure that the same freedoms we enjoy today are enjoyed by future generations.
So healthcare, pensions.
The environment.
Multiculturalism. Awareness. All of the great liberal
things. All of the great liberal inventions and ideas.
Young people, getting them political today, getting them out, getting them to embrace any politics. Why so difficult? It may not be in your circles, but I know many of the parties are saying we're having trouble getting the youth vote.
Oh, the youth vote is the biggest issue. But what is interesting is that there's a huge amount of political activism in our country. You saw that with the Occupy movement, you saw that with social media, Facebook, Twitter, but there's a disconnect between social activism and politics, because especially if you look at this Robogate scandal, it's easy to see why there's cynicism and distrust in our politicians. But that's the challenge. How do you show that politics is actually the best route to make social change?
Exactly, and it's one thing to elect somebody, it's another thing to have somebody actually work for you.
Exactly.
And fight for you at that level. As you know, some politicians get elected so they can have a cushy job.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Many don't. Public service is the highest calling, should be the highest calling, we know that. So back to robocalls for a minute. Certainly Prime Minister Harper says it's a smear campaign, there's nothing to it. And the other leaders are saying, hold it.
Yeah.
Maybe if it just happened in Guelph, we could say little accident. Maybe if it happened somewhere else, little accident. 4 ridings, 11 ridings.
Yeah.
Hello.
25, 39. Yeah.
So how would new liberalism embrace that, what you call new liberalism?
Well, if you look at, it doesn't even have to be new liberalism. If you look at where liberalism started from, it was the idea that you should have a liberal democracy. You need freedoms protected through our democratic structures in order for it to function. And if you have a government in place that's willing to break electoral laws, not only with Robogate, but he did it also with overspending in the last election when they admitted that they broke electoral laws. And so if you have a government in place that's not willing to follow the rules and not willing to have a proper democratic structure in place.
Certainly Bob Ray has spoken a lot about respect of Parliament or respect of tradition, really. Not going backwards, but respect the traditions of this country, the civil liberties, the human rights, the rule of law, democracy, of course. Peter C. Newman was here with his latest book, When the Gods Change, The Death of Liberal Canada. And he suggests that the Liberals just simply aren't going to make it. They're broke.
Yeah. Well, I've said this before, but if you look at Peter C. Newman's book, he originally was trying to write it about Ignatieff's election as Prime Minister. So you see that his prophetic abilities are pretty far off.
Well, he thought Ignatieff would be the next PM,
he thought he'd be the next PM.
Then he had to switch paragraphs, so to speak.
So he knows how to sell a book, but he doesn't necessarily know how to predict the future.
So from a new liberalism viewpoint, what nerve did Ignatieff not hit?
I think Ignatieff, I think a large part of it, like many people have said, was the negative attack ads that were thrown at him throughout the election. I mean, that's the unfortunate part, is Ignatieff came back as an academic, not as a politician. So he didn't realize that you had to defend yourself and defend your record. Otherwise, we would have been more prepared going into the election.
Well, the other thing was that that smell was around about he's not a true Canadian.
Yeah.
He went there.
Yeah.
He crossed the border. He's not a true Canadian. I hated that. I thought that doesn't make any sense. He was raised here. His family's steeped in Canada. So think of something else.
Not only that, but he's also attacking. That's attacking all immigrants. That's attacking people who have lived abroad at different points of their life, saying that they're not true Canadians.
So a good Liberal leader today, the right stuff for a Liberal leader today. Bob Rae is doing just a fine job at the moment.
Yeah, very good
not
job.
sure what the rules are. Can he actually run? He said he wouldn't, but he might, and we don't know, basically.
I mean, in my view, he's actually earned the right to at least have a chance to run in an open nomination contest. But it's up to the board to decide if they would like to change the rules in that direction.
So as Liberals get together today and try and restructure the party, I know money is a big thing, and the machine is a little rusty, and it has to be put together because it is about getting the vote out and getting elected. What about the infighting within a party?
Yeah, I mean, about the fundraising, they actually outraised the NDP in the last quarter. So that so the fundraising part has been improving. But if we're talking about infighting, I believe that was deeply damaging to the party.
Deeply damaging.
Deeply damaging. And I believe that our leader has to unite the party behind a common vision and a common purpose going forward. And I believe that's largely based around the sense that we have to tackle these long-term challenges.
Okay, so long-term challenges, let's look at them. Healthcare, always a challenge.
Very, very challenging. But there are certain key issues. Now, I come from a long line of doctors. So I understand the healthcare system, but the key areas to help fix the healthcare system are to try to increase prevention before entering the healthcare system, and also trying to find out how to use systems like home care, how help people stay in their homes when they get older, as opposed to going into the hospitals and taking out.
Exactly. Many critics say, the money is there. It's just how they're dispensing the money.
Yeah.
And we also have this idea that we have the best healthcare system in the world. Well, it's better than the United States of America, most people feel. It may not be better than what's going on in England. It may not be better than what's happening in Italy, healthcare-wise. So to have a
I'm actually worried about
broader
healthcare.
look at it.
I'm actually worried about it in the sense that the Conservative government's been very hidden about their agenda. Like, they've already decided not to meet with the provinces about a healthcare accord. They haven't come to any sense that they're going to protect our universal healthcare system going forward. And I think that should be worrying to a lot of Canadians.
Very much so. What about old age pensions?
Old age pension,
raising the age could be a good idea.
Well, I believe that the way he's doing it is very underhanded. He had to go to another country to say that he's going to change our pension plan. He didn't come to Canadians saying...
He dropped it in China.
Right. He didn't say to Canadians, this is a serious problem and we have to do something about it.
Right, but whether you're left, right, or center, it seems to me that it's a debate we need to have. People are living longer, we're more vibrant, the country needs the money, the system needs the money, we need to put in all of that, and yet there's people, and we know it's not going to be retroactive. Like that's the future you're talking about, the timeless freedom future.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I see it in two lights. I see it that if you've earned your living throughout your life, then you've earned your pension. So we have to make sure that we protect it for the people who have earned it. But, and our parliamentary budget officer has said that so far it is sustainable, but it is true that we're going to have to start looking at how to make it more sustainable in the long term going forward.
When you get together with other young Liberals, and I know you do, what's on the agenda? Over a beer or over a fine glass of wine? What are you talking about? What are you concerned about in Canada?
Well, I mean, it's not even about young Liberals, but people at my age in general. What they care about, we're graduating, and there are almost no job opportunities for recent graduates.
Can't afford a house.
You can't afford a house. The housing market is exceptionally expensive in Vancouver especially. And so they're leaving with massive student loans, massive student debts, no job opportunities, hard to find a house, and they're wondering, how does the political system work for them? This is part of the disillusionment with our politics. It seems to focus only on helping.
And you get into legalization of drugs or legalizing marijuana, and nobody's ever going to bring it up, I'm convinced. In my lifetime, we've talked about it for 20, 30 years, and nobody's really brought it up.
What I'm surprised about,
at an election level.
yeah, what I'm actually surprised about is how many people have been bringing it up outside of politics. The different attorney generals and the different
Retired.
Yeah.
When any politician retires,
Yeah,
they tell you what they really believe and what they really feel. But as we look at, say, what creates freedom in the world, science and technology create
Science
freedom.
and technology create freedom. They're at the core of freedom.
Innovation creates
Innovation. And in a sense, if you look at the scientific revolution, that came about in the Enlightenment era with liberal principles. And so they have the same tradition, the same heritage.
Right. So historical liberal principles to you that should stay and some should go, because change is good.
Change is good. Change is necessary, especially right now. Under our
Very
current
much
system.
so. So you go back to the days of Lester Pearson, what was so important then. What should we let go?
Well, I
What should
think
we abolish?
Well, I think
Not
it's more
worry
about,
about.
I think it's more about priorities. For instance, this new crime bill, throwing people in the jail will cost a lot of money and will be proven ineffective. Even Texas Republicans said it wouldn't work. You could take that money and put it into systems that you actually believe in, or try to fight challenges you actually care about.
Right. So crime bill, big.
Crime bill is big.
Crime bill, big. Controlling the internet, big.
Big. Huge
new
privacy
issues.
concerns.
Euro crisis, things we really feel we can't do much about. Greece is broke. Yes, they're bailing, but how long will they bail? How does that affect me as a Canadian? What do I want my country to do about that?
Yeah. And talk about the growing debt and deficits because of Greece, Italy, and the Eurozone crisis. If you look at it, the Conservative Party actually brought us back into deficit even before the recession. And this is overspending in areas that don't even help benefit Canada.
Do you have a prime minister you are particularly fond of in a political way? A prime minister who you think was a great leader?
For me, the best prime minister we've ever had is Lester Pearson, by far. He helped create...
Many liberals would agree with you.
I think many Canadians would. If you ask Canadians, even if they don't have an understanding of politics, if you ask them what are they proud of being Canadians, they say healthcare, they say the Canadian flag, they say pensions, they say all these systems that he helped put in place within 5 years as a minority government.
Yes, and today we have other things: terrorism, U.S.-Canada relations, certainly internet, cyberspace, whole new world. And after Lester Pearson, would there be one?
Oh, I actually like John A. Macdonald for what he did, for helping to unite the country, for helping bring in our Western provinces into the country. I think he did a lot.
He did, and Lady Macdonald was right there beside him.
Yeah, exactly.
So to speak. So what do you want an old liberal, a new liberal, a conservative, NDP fan to get out of this? What's the core message?
The core message is that we have to start taking seriously the concept of intergenerational equity and sustainability. We have to start having a serious debate that says, not what will Canada will look like in 5 years, but what will it look like in 10, 20, 30 years? Because those are the questions that we're not asking.
It's true, and it's always been a problem in politics.
Politics,
long-term thinking.
Exactly.
Or you get it just right, then you're out of office and somebody else starts at the beginning. How long did we debate Senate reform? We're still debating Senate reform. First Nations trying to settle it, still trying to settle it. We have done some good things, the residential school apology and all of that. But if we could only learn the lessons.
Yeah, if only.
If only, would you run?
Right now I just want to focus on the book and see if it resonates with people.
And what's the response so far?
So far it's been very positive, luckily. I mean it's a message that speaks to our generation, which is the important thing, because my key concern is how do you get, like you said, how do you get young people involved in politics? How do you make them realize that social change is best through a political system and not outside of it?
Sure, and that the best and the brightest should get involved.
Yeah, exactly.
And as you know, that isn't always the case.
That's not always the case. No.
I thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for this. New Liberalism, Matthew Kalkman, endorsed by the Honorable Lloyd Axworthy. Kalkman puts a new liberal lens on contemporary issues.